I don't know if you know this, baseball isn't boring. We've proved it. We've proved it for 9 months. We're going to continue to prove it with a podcast. My guy Coop, say hi, Coop.
Hi, Coop.
There you go. I'm Rob Bradford, in case you don't know me. Bradfo on Twitter, and like I said, we've been sort of on this cause for the last 9 months. And the fine folks at Odyssey said, you know what? You got to go national. You have to make this the biggest and the best because the conversation is that important. So that's exactly what we're doing. We're doing a podcast. So before we get going, I should demand everyone subscribe, rate, leave a nice review, and most importantly, listen. Go to social accounts at BB Isn't Boring on Twitter and Instagram. And I would be remiss in not introducing the ambassador of this whole thing, the person that launched it, the trampoline, so to speak, of the cause. And that is young Joseph Kelly, who there was no other person to have on our first episode. Congratulations, Joe.
Hey, I just want to take the time. I know it was a big decision. It was between me and Katy Perry. She's a huge baseball fan. So, we do have some things together, some special things we've done. But, I know you're a big Katy Perry fan. Mm-hmm. So, Bradfo, I want to say thank you. Coop, I know you always wanted me on first. So, but it's good to see you two guys, and happy to be here in nice weather finally. I just got back from Chicago about 3 days ago, and there was a few straight days of the high of 37. So now I got to wear t-shirts and some shorts.
Someone's got to do the tough work.
Well, and if there was only a t-shirt that you could wear that said baseball's and boring. Oh, there is. There absolutely is. There you go.
There is. You probably have a ton. I have a ton. Problem is when you move from different locations, there's shit in bags everywhere. And so it's pretty damn impossible to find what you're looking for. Like this shirt right here is, I don't know, maybe 3 years old. I found it here in my house. Needed something today. So
well, listen.
Sorry to disappoint you.
All right, that's okay. You'll find those baseball isn't boring. Everyone can go to Swing Juice to find those baseballs and boring t-shirts all over the place. As I said, go to the baseballs and boring Twitter, Instagram account at BB Isn't Boring. So to go back before we get into whatever we're going to get into, let's go back. Let's go back to where this all began, Joe. And so we basically had the idea for a book, correct? Am I got this right so far?
No, or we're going back to the book. Yeah, we did have an idea for a book.
Oh, well, where do you want to go back? You want to go back to
when you
guaranteed a Cy Young Award in 2014? No,
let's just go back to the book.
Okay, so we had the idea for the book, and the idea was basically, you're as we know, as everyone knows, that there is no better person to talk about what baseball, how great baseball can be than you. You're welcome. So
thank you.
But we were talking about doing this book, and we talked not only about talking about from your perspective, but from other people's perspectives. And so, anyway, because of that, we launched, and this is where Coop got involved. We said, hey, listen, we gotta do a lot besides just the book as we leading to the book. And by the way, March 14th, you can get it, a damn near perfect game, reclaiming America's pastime by one of the nation's preeminent authors, Joseph Kelly. So buy that. It's a nice Christmas present, right? Correct?
It would be a great Christmas present. No, I mean, I think it would be a great Christmas present, although it won't arrive on Christmas, obviously, because it comes out March 14th. But there's nothing you could tell your partner, your loved one, your kids, your boyfriends, your girlfriends, anyone that plays any kind of sport. It's a baseball book ultimately, but there's a lot of life lessons in there. But there's no better way to tell someone that you love them so much is by showing them that you have an IOU letter. Take it back to, the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade when we were young. I had no money, so I'd write tons of IOU letters. And I always came through with them. An IOU letter is only as good as you actually coming through with your word. So, tell them you're getting them this book for Christmas, but make it old school. Get some crayons, get a regular piece of paper, and write IOU blank. And here you go, a damn near perfect game.
Parents love homemade gifts. So you do something like that, some arts and crafts. I mean, that's every kid should be getting this for their parents. And you got two. Most people have two parents, I should say. I shouldn't make an assumption there.
Some have 4. Divorce.
That's true. 5, 6, so we can even quadruple on sales. I mean, every kid should be getting their parents a
if you
book.
have 6 parents, this is the book for you. So, but I think that, yeah, I think you hit on it. This is like, we promise vacations all the time at Christmas. Hey,
Always.
in March, in April, in June, I'm promising you we're going to go on vacation. Well, how is this any different? You order the book on March, it's going to arrive at your doorstep in March. There, what a treat. So there you go.
It's almost as good as finding a $20 bill in your pocket from the wash.
Oh,
You remember getting them a gift, right? Hey, I got you this gift. You're so pumped that you got the pre-order. And then, months go by and you forget about it. Then March 14th comes and boom, it's out your door and you're like, holy shit. It's like finding $20 in your pocket.
That's exactly it. You couldn't put it any better. It's like finding $20 in your pocket after you do the laundry. There you go.
And better than money, it's knowledge. You're getting knowledge. That's more useful.
True.
Well,
teach a man to fish. You feed him for life.
Well, speaking of which, I mean, this is why the book is going to make you a better person. This conversation is going to make a better person. Following the social account is going to make you a better person. Wearing the t-shirt is going to make you a better person. And most apropos right now is listening to this podcast is going to make you a better person. And so, and a better baseball fan, but more importantly, a better person, because I think that one of the things going through the book is that, we can scream and yell about baseball isn't boring, but baseball is on so many levels is so important in so many ways, and so fun in so many ways, and so entertaining in so many ways. And we don't have to have, the moment at Philadelphia, the Bryce Harper home run to realize that. That's one example. But there's so many, and that's why we're going to be doing this every single day. It's this daily podcast. So when you wake up in the morning, boom, Coop's going to have it ready for you. Right, Coop? Is that right?
A lot of pressure, but I'm gonna try and get it done for the people.
Well, this is the first one. You're gonna wake up, boom, here it is.
Boom.
The Joe Kelly Baseballs and Fun ambassador, right at your doorstep. You're welcome. But so we did this. We started in January. So we go through and really, Joe, you go back to when you wrote that excellent op-ed for the LA Times. It was right before the lockout ended. People were saying that baseball's dead, baseball's dying. They're never going to recover from the lockout. And lo and behold, here comes this op-ed from you, which is, let's not forget, what we're fighting for. Let's not forget what we're waiting for. And that's baseball. And I think at that point, you go back to that point and it's like, people don't remember. Like, they're like, oh, baseball, they're never going to recover. And here we are, whatever, 9 months later or whatever, after you basically proclaim this, and it was one of the most entertaining seasons, one of the most entertaining 9 months. And I think people went out of their way, and I think it was in large part because they read that your op-ed and were inspired by it, that people remember this stuff. It was excellent job by you. We're getting the conversation going.
I appreciate that for the op-ed. And going back, like you said, 9 months. I mean, there was so much banter of literally, an old video game turn. Someone plays a game, it gets worn out. You say, hey, what game are you going to play tonight? Oh, I'm going to go play Fortnite. Nah, dead game. What are you playing? Like, hey, play this. And that was specifically what, major outlets were saying. Not just the regular fan. I mean, we're talking about ESPNs. We're talking about, major powerhouse writers from, I'm not going to name drop their names, but they were saying, if this lockout keeps going, baseball's dead. You're losing fans. Kids were probably the only ones saying baseball wasn't dead. Obviously, they still enjoy playing the game, and that's where it starts. And us, in the greater spot, the lockout might have honestly helped the game when people were saying that it was going to crush it, which obviously we're here today.
Who would have ever thought that in January, you're sitting there and all the things that you're saying, like people are the naysayers, this is going to kill baseball and everything. And we're launching a podcast. We have a book, we have the socials, we have all this. And this is an easy conversation, it's easier than ever, to your point. It's easier than, and no one would have ever thought that back then. I mean, nobody. And I think honestly that, to your point, Joe, I think that people at the lockout might've been a good thing, because all of a sudden we were shot out of a cannon and people understood, took a different look at it. And it really, I'm not just blowing smoke. Like when you wrote that op-ed, it was along those lines, right? It was like, let's not forget what's going on. Like, let's not forget about this stuff. And I think that this year, more than any other year I can remember, it was, people didn't forget. People actually made the effort to look a little bit into like why this is awesome.
No, I completely agree. And, you know, I hate to bring it back, but to the old video game route, but I mean, I think MLB The Show 2022 was, you know, the highest grossing MLB The Show game ever, you know, and it was one of those things where people were missing the game of baseball so much. So they were taking their emotions out on saying, you know, well, F that. I'm not going back. F that. You know, it's so easy to just, you know, turn your back when it's not going your way. It's so easy to pout, like you said. All those little things, all the negativity that everyone was saying about the game of baseball. It was, like you said, shot out of a cannon, and people were scuffling to get tickets for, you know, for teams who don't win. We're getting a ton of ticket sales. You know, spring training happened in a flash. You know, people were packing their cars up and driving to spring training. You know, those games were getting sold out. So it's one of those things that the same people that said it was going to be dead were the same people, you know, oh, I need to get my opening day tickets now. I need to buy a ticket. So like you said, it's an easy conversation to have. I mean, there's so many different aspects of the game of baseball you can talk about, from stats to personalities to, you know, practicing. You know, what do you do for your 12-year-old practice? What do you do for your kids? There's so many different things. You know, what's it like being a sports writer? You know, there's just so many different type of ways you could go about talking about the game. And I think that, you know, thanks to Odyssey and you and Coop and, you know, myself to put the Baseball Isn't Boring platform out there, I think it's big. And I think it's going to be fun. There's no other podcast really like it. You know, there's always podcasts about baseball, but it's usually from, you know, either a fan or, you know, someone talking about one game or maybe briefly touching about baseball. But there's no podcast that does it every single day. That's going to have, you know, great guests on throughout the entire year, and, you know, it's going to be fun to watch, and I'm going to be listening to the podcast even when I'm not on it.
Boom.
As players, because this makes me curious, after the lockout and maybe even during the lockout, did a lot of you guys notice the way like the community kind of like started interacting with baseball? Like, was it any different? Because I mean, from my perspective, like I'm one of the young guys that kind of got sick of sports reporters, like big J guys, no offense, Rob, saying that the sport was going to die just because like during the pandemic, it was like I was still like engaging with like the John Boys of the world or like the Jared Carrabbases of the world and guys like that because they were able to keep it alive. And I don't know, maybe MLB kind of finally caught on because I think they used to like really suck at the whole social media thing. And maybe they're now doing a better job of, you know, reaching that younger demographic. But as players, do you guys notice that?
As players, I definitely know that the effort has been made. And it's funny that you bring that up because there's a specific conversation that I had with the commissioner of baseball about these types of things. And, you know, through a sit down, through text messages, shooting ideas off each other, just saying like, this is how the game needs to grow. And baseball has started to roll that snowball down the hill. You know, it's still small, but I think you could see. I mean, they started with getting, you know, powerhouses to come and play. They started with more Amazon games. They started with more YouTube games. They started with more Apple TV games. So you see all these big name brands coming in to support the game of baseball, which is what the younger demographic, you know, likes to see. You know, they like to see the quick, you know, the easy way. You know, we had conversations about, you know, national games compared to local games, and these. It's what's hard about it is right now is that these TV contracts are still going on and they're still so long for regional cable networks and these powerhouses that you can't just get rid of them right away because you'd have to pay back all that money or you're not going to get all that money. So I think they've done a better job with that. Like I said, with the big time players, these companies coming in, and, you know, and even before that, they got, you know, they hired on the pitching ninja. You know, he was doing his own account for a long time, and then MLB was like, hey, you can't copyright, you can't use these video clips. And so, you know, they ended up being, you know what, screw it, this is better for the game of baseball, so let's just hire this guy and put him under, you know, and put him on MLB staff and pay him as an MLB employee, And, so he could still do his job, because when they blacked him out, when they started getting his videos, the fans went wild. And, they're starting to understand more about, like you said, the John Boys, the Kravises, the hip, new, cool, thing about all sports, not just baseball. Like, this is what sells and this is what we need to do. But the players do recognize it. It's been easier than ever to watch someone's highlights on, homers or pitches that game. You don't have to watch the whole game. Single at bats. It's just a lot easier and more accessibility, I think. So it's been good so far this year. And like, to your point, that's definitely grown the game for sure.
I mean, the amount of times I've been DCMA'd for like reposting like MLB highlights is insane. Like, you look like the NBA, anyone can just go and rip like a highlight and just put it up there, because Adam Silver understands that that's the best way to like spread. I mean, it's free advertising. At the end of the day, it's free advertising for the sport. So like, from my perspective and like all my friends, like, we've always just kind of looked at the MLB as just shooting themselves in the foot when you see stuff like that.
Yeah, but they, like, to your point, I think that they've started to realize that. I mean, the fact is, something as some people didn't like this, whether it was miking up players more. Bryce Harper hits one of the most momentous home runs in postseason history, and Ken Rosenthal's interviewing like 2 seconds
and you
later.
could talk to him. Yeah,
right. I mean,
I think that is legendary. I think that it goes back to, not wanting, I hate using this term, but not wanting to show the personalities. It goes back to like the unwritten rules of like, we're so serious, which we are, but football's done it. You see Nick Saban at halftime come in and they're interviewing when he's come out the field and they're losing. And, he's not happy to do it, but they do it. I mean, you see hockey players, you see the NHL do it after every period.
Period.
They come in and they're doing interviews. You see coaches in the NBA do it. So baseball was one of the last sports to end up doing that. And, with the new CBA, they're like, hey, if you guys want to play baseball, you want to make more money, everyone wants to make more money, we're going to have more media access in the playoffs in game. And what do you guys think about that? We're like, well, if you want to play baseball, let's do it. And I think that the players have now understood that it's not frowned upon. They're not going to get backlash from someone else. Back in the day, 10 years ago, someone's like doing an interview during the playoffs, like, get the hell out of here. So it's now easier than ever to be yourself, where people aren't going to give you, you're not going to worry about being a young guy going like, hey, I just hit a homer in the NLCS and Ken Rosenthal is interviewing me. No one's going to even think twice. Bryce Harper's not going to look down there and be like, oh, what's Stott doing an interview? You know what I mean? So it's the more we could do this stuff, the more normal it will get, and you'll forget, even that, you're in a playoff game, and that's going to create better baseball, less pressure. Guys are going to perform better. So I think it's been fun to see, picking the brain, of guys in big moments during the playoffs. Yeah, they're doing the interview. They might not be as honest as they really want to do. Like, oh, you just hit this home run. Like, what were you looking for? Like, oh, I'm just trying to put a good swing on this pitch. Like, no, like it was 3-0. The guy's going to throw me a fucking cutter and I'm going to take this ball deep. And he threw me a cutter in the zone. And then I freaking went off and took him deep. Reese is a good guy. Reese Hoskins, I'm talking about. But, say what you really want to say. Like, hey, 3-0, he's not going to challenge me with a fastball. Everyone knows this. It's 9 out of 10 times he's going to throw a cutter. And if it's for a strike, that's going to be the best pitch to hit, and I'm going to whack it. But, his answer is, hey, I was looking for, a pitch. I had the green light, and, he put it right there, and, I happened to just put a good swing on it. Like, I'm tired of those interviews. So once this gets a little bit more normal, guys are going to go out and be like, this is this. If they came interview me when I came off the mountain, like, hey, big moment, you struck the guy out. Like, why'd you throw 8 curveballs in a row, and then why'd you throw a fastball down the middle to freeze him? Because 9 out of 10 times I'm gonna throw 9 curveballs in a row. So I was like, screw it, I'm gonna throw a fastball down the middle and get that guy. Like, I kind of want to get at some point to those honest answers of, from those in-game interviews, which is going to be sick.
Well, I want to go back to something that was the most important thing you said, which is how awesome this podcast is going to be because of the conversation. But I've said this to a million people. Like, so when we have these baseballs and boring T-shirts, I bring them down to spring training. You had them, Joe. You gave them out to teammates, and right away people are like, well, number one, they're good shirts, but also, that they like the message. And to sort of like play off of what Coop was talking about, what Coop was talking about how I think the players finally get to the point where they weren't so worried about their brand. They understood that this is something that we need to do. We need to put ourselves out there. We need to show people that baseball isn't boring. By the end of spring training, everyone's wearing those t-shirts around because they like the message, and that's it. And like, then you see, like, going forward, like throughout the year, that people want to do this. People want to do these podcasts. Like I had Joe, Rich Hill, Rich. So Rich Hill basically said, hey, I said, Rich, you want to pop on like every once a week, do this, to talk about this stuff? He's like, yeah, and I'll get other guys to do it, because you know why? Because it's a great conversation. Who doesn't want to talk about this stuff?
Yeah.
And I feel like him saying that, guys in your clubhouse saying it, whoever it is, that is happening much more, or it's different mindset than there was 365 days ago. Yes.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
You couldn't have said it better. And coming from guys, Rich, who is a veteran, and myself, who I got my 10 years of service this year. Like, it's coming from guys who are older, who have played, a decade ago when it was frowned upon. So it's coming from guys who've seen both sides of it, right? And now the young guys coming up haven't seen both sides of it. But the more that the older veterans can, not give shit to the young guys for, hey, why are you hosting a podcast, once a week? It's one of those things where you understand that this is what people like. I mean, I have, like I said, my son Knox is 6.5. He likes watching baseball games. Sometimes they get a little long, so he's like, hey, all right, let's watch something else and we'll go back to it. All right, cool. But I put on, a YouTube clip of the Savannah Bananas just dancing after a home run or doing some kind of correlated thing, and he'll sit there and watch that for 10 straight hours and go through 100 different videos. So it's the things like that where the game is changing and MLB is changing. Like, he'll go up and search, best football highlights from 2022. He'll go best NHL shots from 2021. He'll go, best defensive plays in MLB 2022 series. And he's watching like these short clip videos of the best plays. And then, that intrigues him. That's what sells. This is what MLB is doing. They're starting to put more clips out there like that. Like, look at this phenomenal play from Josh Harrison. He's a powerhouse name through veterans in the league. He might not be an everyday name to the kids out there. But if you watch him play defense, the guy deserves a gold glove. He's phenomenal. The plays he makes is incredible. And I got to see it, on an everyday basis this year. And so Knox became a fan of Josh Harrison. He's like, he's so good at defense. Look at this play. And so he'll like be scrolling through defensive plays with Josh Harrison. So just having the more accessibility of clipping these things and putting them on the internet helps grow the game of baseball. And luckily for me, I get to see my job as it, and then I get to see it through a kid's eyes. So I kind of have a great melting pot of ideas of how this game is so great. And so it's cool. If I want the opinion of a child, of a kid, of someone who plays a game, someone who watches a game, I get to have that, I'll go inside right now and go ask him, like, hey, what do you think about this? And he'll give me a straight answer, and kids don't lie. So it's one of those things that, it's a learning curve. And like, we're going back to the point of MLB and 365 days ago, guys would not jump on a podcast. Guys wouldn't be as open. And now that they've seen to this point in time, now they've seen what it's like, now they're comfortable with it. They're not shy about it. And the exposure is great. The exposure is great, not just for that player. It's great for the game, great for that team. And it's great for podcasts, and it's great for things for anyone to talk about, like me, you, Coop, any day. It's great to see it from all these different, avenues of the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I'm looking forward to. Like, we have you on, we have players on, we have, we're going to have Cora on in episode 2 talking about what it's like to get ready for a World Series. There's that aspect of it. But, I want to talk about, and we did plenty of this in the book, where, we talk about Mark Hoppus of Blink-182. I like listening to you interview him was one of the more, I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? This is a guy has a great, he fell in love with baseball in his late 30s. And this is why he fell in love with it. And the constant theme is, I think, whether it's him and a ton of people, Rob Lowe or whoever it is, I think that everybody says, hey, listen, I took the time to say, hey, wait a second, let's just slow things down just a second. And it's really, really good. instead of like the back and forth, the ping pong, the basketball, the hockey, the instant gratification, everything. And I think that people understood that even more. Like take guys, I mean, take the Bryce Harper at bat, right? I mean, think about that. The every single moment, however long that at bat lasted, every single moment of that at bat, you're thinking about what everybody involved is thinking about. All the way to the point of this moment where you have an entire stadium just lose their mind. I mean, that is a microcosm of what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean that's special because coming from the pitcher, coming from Bryce, everyone knows what needs to be done. And if you just look at the odds of that, the whole stadium's crossing their fingers, praying to God, making wishes. For that to actually happen is what makes baseball so great. Because here's a player who was dubbed the LeBron James when he was 18 of baseball. Here's a player who's been through injuries. Here's a player who's been through ups and downs. Here's a player who other players have hated. Here's a player that other players have loved. And for him, and I think you see it, like I was talking to my wife about it, like, hey, Bryce Harper, like it would be cool for him to finally get a ring. It's like you have the regular fan, the regular person saying, man, Bryce Harper, like, all the hype that he had his whole career, probably all the pressure he's had to deal with, all the failures, all the injuries, all the, like, people say he's a bust, $300 million contract from the Phillies.
Missing out on winning
win
with the Nationals. I mean, that plays into the storyline too.
It's crazy that his moment finally came and he didn't miss that opportunity. And, it's going through his head that he wasn't forcing the issue. He was like, I'm going to hit a homer, but I'm not putting so much pressure on myself where, he finally, I could see it in his eyes. It's finally like going like, I don't care about the fans. I don't care about anything. All I care about is my team. I don't care about the hype. I'm going deep and I'm trying as hard as I can to go deep. Where before, like he would get out or strike out in the situation and he'd probably worry about like, oh, Philly fans are going to boo me. Oh, I'm going to get this slack on media. Oh, you're a bust. You get paid so much money for this. For him to finally get that moment, I felt how special it was for him at that time.
All right. So now since you're on, we're going to talk about the World Series. And the obvious question is, I think it'll be a great World Series. I think if you do a poll of America, 80% of people are going to be rooting for the Phillies. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look, do you think, because you've had obviously your history with the Astros, do you think that when people watch, even though it's a few years gone by, when people watch this World Series, will they like separate themselves from what the Astros did and what they were? Or is this still going to be lingering throughout the whole World Series?
It's going to be lingering for sure. I don't think there's going to be any kind of separation. I think that, like you said, it's probably going to be closer than 90% of everyone wanting the Phillies to win. And it is going to be a great World Series. The Astros are a phenomenal team, and everyone knows that. I mean, they just manhandled the Yankees 4-0. They're still great. They still have great players. They have great pitching. But this World Series is going to be different. I mean, this is a Phillies team who, yeah, they might not have won 110 games or whatever like the Dodgers, but the names and the powerhouse players they have, the perennial players they have on their team, is a literal all-star team, and so is the Astros. But I think when you look at their lineup and you look at the names on the back of their jerseys, like, holy shit, why is this the first time they made it to the World Series? You know what I mean? And those guys are playing loose. They're playing free. You don't see pressure on them. They're not just like a bunch of young guys. They're all seasoned veterans. They all have had those, moments where fans are like, you guys suck for how much money you make. You guys are not performing. And now they're finally performing, which is fun to see. And what makes them dangerous is 2 outs. They're going to hit a 2-run homer at any given time. And the teams that hit the most homers you've seen have been scoring the most runs. And I don't think anyone's going to hit more homers in the World Series than the Phillies. I think the Phillies out homered the Astros by a lot. So it's going to be fun to see. It's going to be a great World Series. And I think the best teams are in the World Series at this point in time. You might say the Dodgers, but like the teams that are playing the best are obviously there. You have to. But I think Philly is the best team going into this World Series that the National League could put up against the Astros.
So you just said something super interesting there. The best teams made it. And there were a lot of people after the division series that were complaining. And I think it was mostly people from those regions that cover those teams that the new playoff structure kind of hurts baseball because you're not getting the Dodgers advancing. But I mean, the whole point of the playoffs is to figure out who is the best team at that time and who's the best team built for the entire season. Have any players had that discussion of like maybe there's too many games in the playoffs right now? Maybe they aren't playing enough. Like every series should be 7.
Every series should be 7, I think, but still, I think no matter what, the best team doesn't always win the World Series. It's the best baseball team at that time. It's the best team that's actually clicking on all cylinders. And right now it's Philly. And obviously, a couple years ago it was Washington. After that it was, the Dodgers. And I think from start to finish, you've only seen a couple teams, be able to carry all the way throughout, the World Series in the past, decade.
2018, no big deal.
2018, it was the Red Sox. 2020 was the same year where teams from start to finish were the best. You look at the Braves, they weren't the best throughout the whole year. They were under 500. And that's what makes baseball great. There's only, let's just say 30% of World Series champions start to finish are the best team in all of baseball. And that's what makes it so special. You get in the playoffs, everyone has a chance. I think that's what makes people tune in more. That's what gives you hope. Say you're a small market team and you get in the World Series or you get in the playoffs. That's what gives your team hope. You're like, yeah, the other team's way better than us, but I mean, it takes an error. It takes one guy to go off in the bullpen. It takes one guy to be a great starting pitcher. It takes one hitter. That's what makes this conversation happen, on an everyday basis. And I think, like I said, the best team from the National League is the Phillies. The Astros have been the best from start to finish, so they're one of those teams. If they win this year, they'll be part of the best teams from start to finish type thing. One of those 30%. But if they don't, then you got Philly, who's the majority, the 70% of teams, aren't the best team from start to finish. They might have had the talent to be, but they didn't win a lot of games during the regular season. But they were the best team to win the World Series in the playoffs at that time. And, like I said, that's what makes baseball and stats so crazy. And it's enjoying for, myself as a Major League Baseball player to watch, to break down at bats, to see how guys are pitching, to see if guys are nervous in certain spots. It's definitely the most enjoyable time I've had not being in the postseason, watching the postseason. And that's pretty crazy to say.
I want to go back to, when we talk about 90% of people rooting against the Astros, they've had a lot of turnover since all that stuff went down. Well, not a lot, but some. Does the Major League Baseball teams and players still sort of view, for lack of a better term, hold a grudge when they play the Astros? Is there still, or has that dissipated a little bit? I mean, is there still like, I know that you had a thing with Tony Kemp earlier this year. Obviously you have a history with Correa. He doesn't play for the Astros anymore, but still the Astros are the Astros, and there's still a lot of guys on that team. Do you think, from inside baseball, do you think that people still hold a grudge against them?
I think so. I would say so. Yeah. They could have a completely different team, here in a couple of years, and it's one of those things that's tarnished for life. It's tough. They could have in 10 years, 15 years, they could have a great team, and people will be like, still in the back of their minds are gonna not feel, they're not going to be authentic for their feelings. I think it's just one of those things that, they're going to be screwed forever just because social media was so big. And when that happened, if this would have happened, when I came up, when Twitter was nothing in 2012, I think it could have been gone. But I think now with how crazy memes and GIFs and, podcasts with all entertainment is now not on TV. It's now on the internet. I think how crazy that, like, it's the old thing that the internet never forgets. You could tweet something dumb and delete it, but someone's going to screenshot it. So I think it's the internet never forgets of the Astros.
Did you by any chance catch Alex Bregman?
No, I haven't.
That was an interesting. Rob, did you catch that?
No. But what were you going to say, Joe?
Oh, I was saying it's one of those things. The Astros are the team that is the old saying of the internet never forgets. So 10, like I said, 15, 20 years, I think people are still going to be upset if the Astros are in the playoffs. And as a Major League Baseball player, The guys that are still playing, they don't forget. Guys that are just coming up in the minor leagues, they know what happened. So it's just one of those things that you just have to live with. You know, let's just say the Astros end up winning the World Series this year, and obviously no cheating involved. They're great baseball players. People still aren't going to give them credit for it, which sucks. Is if I was a player on that team. But I mean, it is what it is, and that's you reap what you sow kind of thing. So it's going to be interesting to see the reaction if they do. But it's going to be a great World Series overall.
Sorry, Coop. What were you saying, bro? But I didn't see.
No,
Bregman.
so after they had clinched John Boy as the media giant that they are, they put out some T-shirts and everything, and Alex Bregman had a quick do tweeted something, then deleted it. It was along the lines of we buy our like merchandise from some Houston-based company, not from conspiracy theorists. So he still very much thinks about those videos that they put out on social media.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Dude, like, so the Seattle Mariners, I mean, they leaned into it, right? I mean, when they were going back to Seattle or into that series, they had the Department of Parks, say, hey, watch the trash cans. I think make our first bumper sticker, Coop. Joe came up with it. The internet never forgets, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Internet lasts forever.
They're literally the internet never forgets team.
Well, all right, man. Well, it's good times. I appreciate that you being you.
Yeah, of course.
So good times ahead. And yeah, so it's been a wild journey, and it's great to have this podcast and great to have you help launch it. And I know that and Coop, same thing. Coop's done an unbelievable job, and he continues to be an unbelievable job. The straw that stirs a drink.
I do my best.
We got Odyssey to get. We need to bump Coop's raise. We need to give him a little raise. Maybe a Christmas bonus.
Your words, not mine.
You heard it here first.
Listen, he's like I said, he's also, but you know what we pay him? We pay him in smiles, T-shirts, and acknowledgments and books. So there you go.
I gotta get extra big smiles though. Inflation's crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
All right, gentlemen.